Many investors make this one mistake. In fact, I see it almost every day, so it must be very hard to solve, right? Well, it's actually much easier than you think. So, what is this mistake and how do we fix it? It's very simple. It's fear of the market. You may have heard of this and thought, of course, I don't fear the market. Well, think about the last time you checked your portfolio, maybe just a few hours ago. Of course, simply looking at your portfolio doesn't mean you're afraid of the market. However, the feeling you get when you see a red day can easily be fear. This fear might then push you to search for answers, perhaps by watching YouTube videos, to understand why your stocks or the market are down. This reaction can reinforce fear, which might lead you to make rash decisions like selling good stocks too early, ultimately harming your portfolio. But when should you be fearful? As Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett famously said, be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful. In other words, being cautious when the market is overvalued can be a valuable strategy.
We're somewhere in between, and we don't know exactly where we are in between. Uh, the business of being scared, I don't know what you do about that. Uh, if you're of that, if you have a temperament that when others are fearful, you're going to get scared yourself. You are not going to make a lot of money in securities over time, in all probability. Uh, People really, if they didn't look at quotations, but of course the whole world is urging them to look at quotations, and more than that, do something based on small changes in quotations. But if you didn't think how much more rational, we've talked about it before, but think how much more rational investing in a farm is than the way many people buy stocks. If you buy a farm, do you get a quote next week? Do you get a quote next month? If you buy an apartment house, do you get a quote next week or month? No, you look at the apartment house or the farm and you say, I expected it to produce so many bushels of soybeans and corn, and if it does that, it meets my expectations. But they buy a stock and they think if it goes up, it's wonderful, and if it goes down, it's bad. We think just the opposite. When it goes down, we love it because we'll buy more, and if it goes up, it kills us to buy more. And I, you know, Ben Graham wrote about it. It's been explained. Uh, but if you can't get yourself in that mental attitude, you're going to be scared whenever everybody else is scared, and expect somebody else to tell you when to buy and therefore get your courage back up or something. I could get this fellow's courage up substantially by saying it's a wonderful time to buy, and then a week from now he'd run into somebody else that tells him the world is coming to an end, and he'd sell. I mean, he's a broker's friend, but he's not going to make a lot of money.
What Buffett said here is that we shouldn't be scared when our stocks fall. Rather, we should see it as an opportunity to buy more of a high quality stock. Another thing that closely resembles the fear of stocks falling is FOMO, the fear of missing out. This is a term widely used by investors, and the truth is, almost every investor experiences FOMO at some point. As they watch the market climb higher and higher, they start believing that it will never go down. This mindset can lead to poor decision making. Imagine this: a stock has doubled in the past month, and you decide to buy in at $100 per share simply because it has been going up. At first, things look great. The stock moves up to $105 per share, but then it drops to $90 per share. You tell yourself it's just a small dip, it'll go right back up. Then it falls to 80, then 70, then 60, and before you know it, it's at $30 per share. You're confused and frustrated because you never actually researched the company. You bought purely out of the fear of missing out on a rally, knowing nothing about the business beyond its name and ticker symbol. Warren Buffett has always emphasized the importance of understanding what you're investing in. One of his most famous pieces of advice is never invest in a business you cannot understand. This directly implies to avoiding FOMO driven decisions. If you don't know how a company makes money, what its competitive advantage is, or whether it has long term growth potential, then you have no way of knowing whether the stock's price increase is justified or if it's just speculation. The key to protecting your portfolio is discipline, avoiding FOMO, thoroughly researching companies before investing, and focusing on the long term fundamentals rather than short term hype are crucial habits. This approach ensures that you're buying stocks based on logic and conviction, not emotions and fear. If I were to ask you, why do we invest in stocks? Most people would say it's to earn money in the long run. Yet, despite this, many investors fail to hold their stocks for extended periods. Instead, they constantly chase the next 100 bagger that will supposedly happen within a year. If you browse YouTube, you'll find countless videos claiming this stock will change your life or this stock will skyrocket next week, etc. And I don't blame content creators for making these videos, as there's a huge demand for them. But why should we focus on investing in high quality companies rather than chasing short term 100 baggers? Bill Ackman, a well known investor, strongly supports the idea of investing in predictable, high quality businesses rather than gambling on speculative plays. High quality companies have stable earnings, strong competitive advantages, and clear long term growth potential. On the other hand, companies that aren't making money or lack a solid business model are much harder to predict, making them significantly riskier. When investing in a stock, we must think long term and resist the urge to sell based on short term fluctuations. The only scenarios where selling early might make sense are if the stock has risen too much and appears overvalued, or if you urgently need the money. Otherwise, we should remain patient and hold onto our investments for the long haul to maximize our profits, just as Ackman advocates in his strategy of owning great businesses for extended periods. Next, we want to avoid putting all our eggs in one basket, unless we're 100% sure. But the reality is, in investing, we're rarely ever 100% sure. That's why it's important to diversify our portfolio, but not too much. Over diversification can dilute returns, while too little diversification can expose us to unnecessary risks. So, how many stocks should we own in a portfolio? Well, for super investors like Warren Buffett or Charlie Munger, they can comfortably hold just 2 to 5 stocks because they have deep knowledge and conviction in their investments. But for the average investor, it's generally wiser to stay within the range of 10 to 20 stocks. That said, this doesn't mean that if you don't already hold 10 stocks, you should rush to buy more. Instead, take it slow and focus on quality. Investing isn't about owning as many stocks as possible, it's about patiently waiting for great opportunities and betting big when you find them. At the same time, we want to be mindful of overexposure to any single sector. If one industry underperforms over the next few years, a portfolio heavily concentrated in that area is likely going to struggle just as much. The goal is to strike a balance. Hold enough stocks to reduce risk, but not so many that it becomes impossible to track and manage them effectively. Here's Warren Buffett talking about it.
But so we have no. There's nothing magic. We like to put a lot of money in things that we feel strongly about, and that gets back to the diversification question. You know, we we think diversification is, as practiced generally, makes very little sense for anyone that knows what they're doing. They Diversification is a protection against ignorance. I mean, if you want to make sure that nothing bad happens to you relative to the market, you own everything. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that is a perfectly sound approach for somebody who does not feel they know how to analyze businesses. If you know how to analyze businesses and value businesses, it's crazy to own 50 stocks or 40 stocks or 30 stocks probably, because there aren't that many wonderful businesses that are understandable to a single human being in all likelihood. And to have some super wonderful business and then put money in number 30 or 35 on your list of attractiveness and forego putting more money into number one just strikes Charlie and me as madness. And it's conventional practice, and it may, if all you have to achieve is average, it may preserve your job, but it's a confession in our view that you don't really understand the businesses that you own.
So, what Buffett said here was that we shouldn't own too many stocks since there aren't that many great opportunities out there. Instead, we should invest in the few we find and bet big on them. Thank you so much for watching. However, just knowing what can hurt your portfolio is not enough. You also need to know how to pick the right stocks, so watch this video right here.